Hello, my name is Blossoms and welcome to another Genshin Impact video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the different talents and constellations that Ganyu has to offer, as I have recently gotten her, as well as give you guys some preliminary build suggestions for her for those of you who are trying to figure out exactly how you want to build her, along with some weapon suggestions, etc. But before we actually hop in, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more of that Genshin Impact content. Always going to be doing more content like this, and I really appreciate the support. Starting off with her talents, we have her normal attack, Liushin Archery. Your normal kind of bow stuff in terms of her normal attack at the very least, but then her charged attack does get a little spicy. She has 2 levels of charges, and the first level is the same as any archer shooting their respective element off. Then the second level here actually deals a cryo AoE after impact, which is pretty darn cool. And we'll go and show that off, and you can see that it scales pretty and like crazily right here. I do have it at level 5, but it scales pretty darn hard right there, which is pretty nice. And you can see that also goes up as you level it up, scaling even better. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look as to how that looks. And this is her normal attack pattern. As I said, nothing too fancy there, but then we get into her charge shot, and you'll see this. You see we got the second charge there, the flakes are all around it there. Boom, shoots up a thing there. That's the normal version right there. And you see the second charge here comes pretty darn quick. You don't have to wait too long. And does that nice little AoE. Pretty darn nice, and does a big amount of damage. You can absolutely snipe people. It's kind of crazy. Moving on to our second talent here, we have Trail of the Kinlin. I don't actually know how to pronounce that, but leaving a single Ice Lotus behind, Ganyu dashes backwards, shunning all impurity and dealing AoE cryo damage. She says, "No, begone impurity." And the endurance scales based off of her max HP, and the blooms profusely when destroyed or once its duration ends, dealing AoE cryo damage. It also does initial damage on the actual cast. We'll go and show that off as well, and it taunts basically like Amber's Bunny, except it doesn't suck. It's got a relatively short cooldown, relatively decent duration here, so you only have like a 4-second downtime, which is pretty darn nice. And for those of you interested to see how it scales, you can see that it does scale pretty well. Alright, to show that off, we'll go ahead and dash back here. And you see that it did cryo on the initial part there, and then when it ends, it'll actually do another cryo explosion. See, and one big thing to note here is on the initial cast, that generates 2 energy orbs if you hit an enemy, and then when it explodes, that also generates 2 orbs, which is pretty darn nice. Passive taunt, passive damage, passive energy generation, pretty darn good ability. Moving on to our third talent here, we have Celestial Shower. Coalesces atmospheric frost and snow to summon a sacred cryo pearl that exercises evil. During its ability duration, the sacred cryo pearl will continuously rain down shards of ice, striking opponents within an AoE and dealing cryo damage. This thing lasts a while. It lasts for 15 seconds, and its cooldown is 15 seconds, so for those of you paying attention, that's a 100% uptime on a skill that only costs 60. So if you're building out your Ganyu with some solid energy generation, you can keep up her elemental burst indefinitely, which is pretty darn insane and kind of explains why the ice shards don't do too much by themselves. But you can imagine that damage definitely piles up as you go along, and this is how it scales right here. Nothing too crazy, but the fact that you can keep it up constantly is kind of insane, and is going to be allowing her to dish out a lot of damage over a long period of time and provide amazing crowd control. Not to mention, this makes her one of the best cryo appliers in the game. If you're able to keep up this elemental burst, it's actually pretty darn insane. Really valuable for those of you who really like melt comps. Alright, to show off her elemental burst here, I went ahead and got into combat here. We'll go ahead and pop that taunt. They'll hit that for a bit. And we'll show you her Q here. It's very beautiful. You get a nice little cutscene, and you can see, you can, if the bush wasn't there, you can see that it does some pretty solid damage in here. And hits everybody in the AoE periodically, just pretty much doing damage constantly. I don't know why that guy just ran away. He just decided he was done. He said it wasn't worth his time anymore, but that's how the Q works. It's pretty nice, really strong, especially if you can keep it up on that 100% uptime. Moving on to our fourth talent here, we have Undivided Heart. After firing a Frost Flake arrow, the crit rate of subsequent Frost Flake arrows and the resulting bloom effects is increased by 20% for 5 seconds. This is pretty much just like kind of a nice quality of life thing. You fire one of the level 2 charge shots, and then your crit rate on the next one is going to be increased as long as you get it off within that 5 seconds. and that's just going to allow you to guarantee that you're doing crit damage, which is pretty nice because Ganyu's Hidden Ascension bonus is crit damage. Moving on to our fifth talent here, we have Harmony Between Heaven and Earth. Celestial Shower grants a 20% cryo damage bonus to active party members in the AoE. One thing to note here is this does not affect the actual elemental burst because you cast the burst and then you get the effect afterwards, so it doesn't really work like that. However, this does affect her other abilities like her double charge shot as well as her taunt, so those are going to be dealing additional damage, and this will affect your other cryo characters. So like any of you who are a Chongyun main out there is just going to be getting a free 20% cryo damage bonus, which is pretty darn nice as long as you stay within the AoE, and the AoE is pretty huge, so you don't really need to worry about that. Moving on to our final passive talent here, we have Preserve for the Hunt. It refunds 15% of the ores used when crafting bow type weapons. So when you get a prototype, you know, in every 7 blue moons or so, this will be pretty nice because it refunds some of the ore, but not exactly the craziest passive. Moving on to Ganyu's Constellations, we'll go over these briefly. I know it's a 5-star, so pretty much most of you aren't going to be getting these constellations, but she does have some valuable ones here. Starting off with Dew Drinker here, we have taking damage from a charged level 2 Frostflake Arrow or Frostflake Arrow Bloom decreases opponent's cryo resistance by 15% for 6 seconds. A hit regenerates 2 energy for Ganyu. This effect can only occur once per charged level 2 Frostflake Arrow, regardless if the Frostflake Arrow itself or its bloom hit the target. So basically this is going to be regenerating some energy for you, which is pretty darn nice, as well as lowering their cryo resistance. So this is a really strong C1, and if you got it, that's extremely nice quality of life. Her C2 here is the Auspicious. Basically Trail of Kindling gains an additional charge, so you gain an additional taunt, which is pretty nice. It's really going to help your energy generation, as well as, you know, distract the enemy more, which is definitely nice crowd control. For that third constellation, just levels up the Celestial Shower. And the fourth one here is Western Sojourn. Opponents standing within the AoE of Celestial Shower take increased damage. This effect strengthens over time. Increased damage taken begins at 5% and increases by 5% every 3 seconds up to a maximum of 25%. The effect lingers for 3 seconds after the opponent leaves the AoE, which is pretty darn insane. This is actually kind of a nut C4. This is going to be making sure that they take even more damage in her elemental burst, really influencing you to try and keep that 100% uptime, and I'd say it's extremely worth it, especially if you have this. That Constellation 5 is the Merciful. It increases the level of Trail of the Kindling by 3. Nothing too crazy, seen it all before. And then here we are at the final constellation, the Clement. Using Trail of the Kindling causes the next Frostflake Arrow shot within 30 seconds to not require charging. This is pretty nice. I guess that's not exactly the craziest C6 ever. It does allow some quick damage, I will say that. But if I got C4, I'd probably just stop there. I really wouldn't care about the C6, but what do I know, right? And before moving on to the build portion of this video, we will go ahead and show off her a little bit of lore there for you guys interested. We have this little preliminary piece right there, as well as the character details right here, and you can read that, see if her character is something that interests you. But here we are moving on to the build portion. Alright, so to start off, let's talk about weapons. Of course, the Amos bow is going to be fantastic on Ganyu. It's kind of built for her kit, at least for her charge shot specifically. And the fact that Amos bow itself is a stat stick, you know, with high attack percent values as well as high base attack and increased damage on the normal and charge attack, as well as increase for the actual travel distance of the shot. This really does work well for her damage, especially if you want to be going for that main DPS role Ganyu, where she's going to be normal attacking and charged attacking, and you're going to have her on the field more often. However, there are plenty of great options for Ganyu. Most bows work on her, actually. It all is really going to depend on how you want to build your Ganyu. If you're going for like more of a support Ganyu, I would say the Stringless is probably going to be one of your best bets here. Considering she's really good at hitting people with cryo, Elemental Mastery here is definitely not bad, and the increased damage on her skill and Elemental Burst would be invaluable, especially if you're going for that 100% uptime on her burst. Things like the Favonia's Warbow will do just as well though. Her charge shots are basically going to be doing those crits, especially with that passive, and that's going to gain you that energy, which is pretty darn nice. So if you don't have something like the Stringless, then the Favonia's Warbow is going to be able to generate plenty of energy for you. It also provides that energy recharge, and a huge amount at that, which is really going to assist in keeping her elemental burst at that 100% uptime that we were talking about. So this definitely isn't a bad option. You could even go something like the sacrificial bow, but it has significantly less energy recharge, but it does have a higher base attack, which is pretty nice, and you do have a chance of your skill resetting itself, meaning you can go ahead and get a second flower out there, which isn't too bad. Now you could also use something like the rust on her. I really wouldn't recommend it though. The decrease on your charge attack damage is kind of not it, especially with Ganyu, because her charge attack deals so much damage. But you know, if you're not really one of those people who really like to do the charge attack, then this is absolutely a great option for you. If you really don't care about that charge attack that much, then I wouldn't care about it too much. Now, I can't speak to say if this actually affects the amount of damage that the bloom does. I would imagine that it doesn't, but it definitely affects her initial charge shot damage, and it's only 10%, which isn't too crazy, so that's also something to consider. So if you have a high refinement rank rust, this is also still a good option, but I would say you definitely have better options. Even something like the Viridescent Hunt is pretty nice on her because you get free crit rate, and it actually does the little suck effect to the enemies. And if you have her Q out and you suck them, all the enemies, into one location, then they're just going to be constantly hit by her Q. It's actually pretty hilarious, and that would be a pretty fun bow to use as well. But I'm going to be personally sticking with Amo's bow because I do have it. And then if I ever need her to swap to support specifically, I'm just going to be swapping her to the stringless, as I think those are probably her best options. Now, in terms of artifact sets for Ganyu, you're going to have plenty of options here. And for right now, what I'm running a 2-piece cryo damage set as well as a 2-piece Noblesse Oblige, and I might stick with that and I might change it. If I do change it, it's probably just going to be 2-piece Glad, 2-piece Blizzard Strayer for me personally. You could go 4-piece Blizzard Strayer on her. That's actually a really good way to go. It does increase her crit rate, and if they're frozen, it also increases your crit rate, which is pretty good, especially since she's so good in freeze comps. She's really good at applying that cryo, so if you have like a Hydro main DPS like Child or something, then maybe this could be a really good set for you to go 4-piece on, because while Child's on his cooldown or something, you swap to Ganyu and do huge damage while they're all frozen, so that could be pretty valuable. So that's definitely not a bad option. If you're looking for more of a support Ganyu, then I would 100% go for that 2-piece Noblesse Oblige, 2-piece Blizzard Strayer right there. That's probably going to be the best for you. And if you're trying to kind of make her do a lot of roles, which she's very good at, by the way, she's very good at being a support DPS, main DPS, or just, you know, kind of charge shot one-hit character, which is pretty funny. If you're trying to kind of make her work for multiple roles, I would probably say the Gladiator's Finale and the Blizzard Strayer are probably going to be your best bets there. But the main point here is that you kind of have a lot of options. You could even go 4-piece Heart of the Depth. I have seen some people doing this, because after you use your elemental skill, it increases your normal and charge attack damage by 30%. It's pretty funny. I wouldn't say that's the best set for her, but that's definitely something you could do if you're really into that. Now, if you really want to focus on the charged attack, though, easily 4-piece Wanderer's Troop is going to be your best bet, as that is going to increase your charge attack damage by 35%, since she's a bow user, and it increases your elemental mastery pretty darn nice. So if you have a really good Wanderer's Troop set, then I would go ahead and just pop that on her until you farm out your desired set. Now, in terms of main sets you want for Ganyu, you could easily go attack percent here, cryo damage bonus, and crit rate right here. I would recommend crit rate, and then you want to look for as many crit damage substats as possible and as many energy recharge substats as possible, because that's going to help you out the most. However, if you are looking for that 100% ult uptime and you don't have an energy recharge weapon, then you're probably going to want to put an energy recharge sands on her, as that's going to help guarantee that you're going to go ahead and have that option of having her ult up at all times. However, she might be doing a little bit less damage. Hopefully that gave you guys a good idea of how Ganyu works and how you might want to build her going forward. I am going to be doing my build on her before too long here. I'm going to try and get that out next week. I just have to farm some of her books and play around with a couple artifact sets before I settle on exactly what I want to do with Ganyu. But I will be making that build video sooner rather than later, so stick around for that. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and comment below. Tell me your thoughts on Ganyu, if you enjoy her, if you really want her. I would like to see what you guys have to say below. But anyway, that's going to be it for me. My name is Blossoms, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Peace.